Well, thanks for staying with News at Prime tonight. Tributes continue to pour in for former Sun International, Telkom and Eskom Chairperson Jabu Mabuza. The 63-year-old lost his battle to COVID-19 yesterday. The taxi owner turned corporate heavyweight has been hailed for his contribution to the business world, his advocacy of South Africa, and activism against apartheid. We're now joined by businessman and activist Bonang Mohale, who was also Mabuza's mentee. Tate Mohale, good evening to you. You describe Jabu Mabuza as your boss, somebody who is a teacher and a quality human being. Firstly, let me extend my condolences to you and all of his other close associates on his loss.
Especially our CP, where Mshengu's children, the whole clan, friends and family. You know, the strongest amongst us, Mema Muhlahlan, are those that are making time to help others, even though they are still busy struggling with their own problems. Tate Mabuza was that type of a human being. I mean, here's a guy who started his own businesses driving taxis. Then he started one of the most profound organizations of our time, FAPCOS, Libontate Babang. Then he went on to become a corporate gorilla. He ended up being on the board of no less than 15 companies, most of them, by the way, international, and he chaired more than half of those. He's the one who approached South African breweries at that time, before it was called Anheuser-Busch InBev, even before it was SAB Miller, to say, look, I can speak to this ANC-led government and get you a casino license in South Africa, because all the casino licenses were in the former homelands. That's how he started. So Khosan, he went on to become its group CEO, and when it was bought by the Hoskin Consolidated Investment with Marcel Golding and Jody Colopin, he then retired. He came to business leadership South Africa at our behest as business at that time. I'd spent 8.5 years running the world's biggest and oldest integrated energy company, Shell, for 8.5 years, looking after 33 countries in Africa, and said to him, look, we want you to be the voice of big business alone, because we saw what happened in 2007 on the way to Polokwane. The ANC was fractured. Thereafter, COSATU was fractured, which took us 20 years to put together. Now, the other one that was left was business, because the people who called themselves our leaders had learned that they can divide and rule forever and thereby extend their hegemony. At that time, he was very reluctant, but we made him the president of Business Unity South Africa, the APEX organization. We made him the president of the CO initiative when he came back from the World Economic Forum, and then we made him chairman of Business Leadership South Africa. Unbeknown to me, a year later, when I decided to take an early retirement from Shell at age 55, he then persuaded me at Mohale Shelega Nkosiam, come and help us to help BLSA. At that time, there were 35 CEOs of big listed companies. By the time I left, there were 89. In the CEO initiative, there were 100. And you couldn't say no to him. He went on, of course, to become the chairman of Sun International, the lead independent director of MultiChoice. He chaired even academic institutions like UNISA School of Business Leadership. Incredible, good quality human being in bone and marrow.
It takes a great deal to bring, different constituencies within business to agree on somebody that should be the face and the voice of business in this country. What did it take to be able to do that? And what did the various associations, whether it's Business Unity South Africa, Business Leadership South Africa, and the CEO initiative, see in Tate Mabuza that they felt would be able to represent all of those different constituencies well?
We saw many managers, but the death of leadership. Because leadership is about having some sort of a compelling vision, it's about having courage, it's about having integrity. And in Ntate Mshengu, Dr. Jabulani Albert Mabuza, he was the embodiment of all three. He was fearless, he was direct, and he was the most consummate business person. He could bring in 100 voices in a room and you all agreed that we're going to turn left 1 degree. And by the way, his success was truly unprecedented and legendary at the time that we needed to have crucial, critical, but nonetheless courageous conversations. Remember, he brought us in at the height of state capture, when the then sitting president, Jacob Zuma, was asking, what is state capture? We defined it for him, but we met him as Fakomahatu Presidential Guest House and told him in his face that if he loved his people, I think he needs to stop aiding and abetting state capture, because at that time, they had siphoned off 1.4 trillion South African rands through state capture. This is what it takes Edward Kieswetter probably the whole year to bring in as a revenue collection. Every year we're estimating that they were siphoning off, just to the two Zupta families, 20 billion South African rands a year and every year, probably for the last 9 wasted years. So I think to stop that, and we were successful. I mean, we set our sights with the singularity of purpose on this PR company called Bell Pottinger, and we said in 6 months we must have killed it, and indeed we did. And then lastly, of course, when we then approached him and said, we're going to include your name as one of the 5 that we're going to submit to National Treasury for their serious consideration for the Eskom board, because at that time BLSA had actually suspended initially KPMG, secondly Eskom, number 3 Transnet, and then of course Bain Consulting, the others came afterwards. He worked so hard. He put in a strategy led by Ubabu Pagamani Hadebe, again another giant, absolutely clear about where he wanted to take Eskom, with the most incredible team that he had assembled. And even there, I think he absolutely produced the requisite results. Within a year, Eskom was the first company that BLSA deemed it fit to lift the suspension. It was followed, of course, by KPMG, that was led at that time by Professor Lumkile Wiseman. So you can see that for me, I felt absolutely blessed to be in the presence of dignified greatness from the black pool of excellence. He's widely known as the entrepreneur extraordinaire. When they formed Focus, they ended up buying into Premier Milling. That allowed them to really expand their wings. Today, you look at his family, you look at his lovely wife, Sisipiwe, you understand that we have talent in God's own country, blue skies, African sunshine.
Ntate Mohale, we're going to have to leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much for that incredible account of the late Jabu Mabuza.